Hi everyone, just today we're going to have a bit of a go at putting some of the SRC stuff on. I'm not sure how much we'll get through this weekend, but we'll see how we go. I'm going to start with the headlight, so the Headlight Guard. So we had a look at that, just unboxing it the other day. So I'll have you to read through the instructions and stuff, putting that on and show you anything exciting that happens, or probably just the end product, because it's pretty straightforward. A couple of things to undo to put the bolts in place, and then the actual guard itself just goes over pins, so you can remove it with no tools. So it could be flogged quite easy, or stolen I guess, but I don't think that'll happen. But yeah, I'll start piecing it together and show you the finished product when she's done, because she's pretty straightforward. The first step, you obviously got to take your visor off. So this is the 4 bolts to take it off, and then you end up mounting it using the original mounting points down the bottom. So I'll have to remove and just cut and re-put on, I think, because I've gone inside here and then outside here as far as my wires, my USBs being just tethered there. So I'm not sure which side of that I need to go with this main bracket here that goes in there. So it goes in something like that, so we'll see. So first of all, we'll just take the windscreen off. Okay, so the first top bracket's on. It sits internal. So obviously I've got the risers off Curtis from on the back wheel, and even his nut and bolt set he gives you is enough to go through. Catches all the way through the entire nut length, so that's fine. So it fits there sandwich of the original bracket, the light bracket, and then Curtis is on the back wheel extenders, and that's all ready. So now we'll do the other one, which is a little bit tricky to get to, but you can see there's already a, I think it's a captive, I'm assuming, must be a captive, yeah, it's already a captive nut up right there. So it goes up into that and has the bracket that comes here to hold the base. So we'll put that on there and then we'll fit her in. Okay, bottom bracket's on. Obviously, it's a lot easier when you spin your wheel. You can pretty much get your fingers in there a lot easier then. So just obviously eyeball that, center there, and chuck her on. And then you're good to fit the main unit. All right, so she's all on. So she's quite a tight fit to actually get it on, which is good, because obviously by doing that, it has tension everywhere and everything's pulled tight onto the plastic. One thing to note, it's in the second bit of packaging that just holds this bit, is a little single-sided bit of rubber padding, which you've already done the other part first, and it goes under here. So you just have to loosen this off. You're able to lever it up a little bit, take the sticky off, slide under, push it back down, it's all on. So that's the SRC headlight protector on. So it's a good piece of kit, seems good. Like I said, it's 210 Aussie dollars. So it's not on the cheap side at all, but it will protect the headlight, which is worth, I think, $1,000 or $1,400 to replace the headlight. So I'd rather spend that to protect the headlight. Okay, so it's the next day now. Yesterday I started on the Bashplate once I finished doing the headlight. So I took the original one off because obviously it's really just a couple of bolts. Take the main bracket off the original older bracket, so you can see all that's over here. So the original bracketry, this frame between here is that. So you replace all that, all those bolts, everything gets replaced. So two bolts here, 2 here, and those 3, and all that bracket all gets replaced. It all comes in the kit. So because I bought the crash bars and the Bashplate, ended up ringing SRC Moto Australia. Had a good chat there. I've chatted with them a few times during the purchase and all that sort of stuff, waiting for the new stuff. So you also get, wherever I've put them, you also get these brackets. So if you were just going to be doing the crash bars, this is what you get, which is actually thinner gauge. It matches the original gauge 2mm, I think, bracket that would go there, where this one is. But because I've got both items, because they don't know who's buying both kits at all like that, because they're individual items, I don't need these. I also then don't need these 2 bolts that are in there. I'll use them to put it all together now to get the Bashplate up and get all the Loctite on, so tighten it all up, then back ones out and do Loctite and everything. These 2 get removed in the end, so this one remains. So the one that comes with the, you'd either be using the original one, or because I've bought the Bashplate, I'll keep the Bashplate one that came with it, because when it comes to doing the actual crash bars, they only use these 2 bolt retaining points, and they come with these ones, which is a bushing set. So obviously that goes all the way through, and it's a bushing set, because that little bushing here gets retained in the hole here, which is the perfect size for the bushing. So you can see it sits in there. Obviously with the bushings too, they confirmed on the phone when I was chatting, don't over tighten these. Once it starts bulging out a slight bit, you're done, because I've had a couple of guys last week who've got these new kits which use the bushings, the new upgraded version of the crash bars, and they've cracked their bushings because they've just tightened them too much. So just be careful on that, he mentioned. So yeah, so I was thinking last night how to do it the best way to get the Loctite on each thing. I'm going to tighten it all up, everything, with no Loctite. And then once it's all in place, I'll back out the ones underneath, Loctite, Loctite. Then I'll back out these, Loctite, Loctite. Loctite this one as well, the main bar, main bolt, nut and bolt. And then these two I can actually take out because they need to be able to come out. And if I've Loctited underneath here and that one bolt, hopefully everything's sitting square, because it'll be a bit fiddly otherwise. Then I can do these two once I've got the crash bars on, because you've got to undo these, swap them out to these to get the crash bar on. So we'll see how we go. Yeah, so the ones underneath, they're just captive into that nut. You can see just down there. And it's got like a little washer spacer underneath, so then you just use a bit of Loctite. So you can unthread these and put it back up. So I'll do those now. We'll move to this side now, because you've got to start from here. So the bolts under here are Loctited in. These ones here I was going to Loctite, but then after tightening them I couldn't get these bolts out, because obviously it adds all a bit of tension and angling and hard to back these ones out, which were the other ones which I don't need now. So I've loosened these off, which made these come out fine. So now what we're going to do, you've got to do everything at the same time. So we've got the front bolt out of here, because it just sits on the front bolt for here. We're then going to lift it all into place it on here, and place it here and here. And obviously here's where you've got to pull this apart and just put that first half through, so the bushing lines up, and then the other half's going to go on the other side for those two bolts. And then we can tighten it all up and Loctite it all once we're all in position. Okay, so it goes in not too bad. Like obviously once I get that one in, it'll hold it a bit for me. Here you're just sort of holding your fingers and trying to get it all correct, because it sits like that with that bushing to locate all that. And we're sitting good here, so we'll put a little bit in to hold it in place, and then you obviously go around the other side and hope your bolts haven't fallen out. I probably could almost chop the stand up a little bit to keep the bike a bit more level, but we'll just give it a go like this for now. Okay, so I've run into a pickle. Bit of a pain in the ass, to be honest, fucking annoying. Because you're buying the two kits as well, so you can't have your bash plate on or up, because you can't get this bolting. Because this bolt's longer, you know, you can't go through this angle and get it through that hole, because you're fouling in here. You can't go, even if you try to get the bushing through the hole in the bash plate first. So then if you try to get the bushing in and then have that up and then have this on the angle, you still can't get in the hole of that hole and everything to do it. So basically you've got to take the bash plate back off, which is fine, but it'd be good if they basically had instructions if buying both products and installing all bash plate and this is the process to follow. Because I've obviously got videos for each individual item, but that would be my one criticism for SRC, is give instructions for doing the dual, because a lot of people buy the bash plate and this because they go together and match together and fit. But fitting them up is then different, because I've got to drop this off and I've got to take this off because this sits on a weird angle to drop that out. So yeah, start from scratch again now. We'll break those. Loctites wouldn't have dried anyway. Drop it out, put this on, and then put the bash plate up last, which makes perfect sense, but it'd just be good to know that at the start, that's all. Okay, so now with the bash plate dropped down, this is a lot simpler, like that, to go straight through and line up. But in doing that, you haven't got your sort of bracketry held captive like I did before. Everything is sort of held in place, so it's a bit more fiddly. So we've got her on. We've cinched that up tight. No Loctite on anything yet. We've got the bushing, so once you cinch this up tight down here, it holds it. If you've already pushed the bushings in, the bushings will stay in place. The bolt might slide backwards, but that's fine. The bushings are in place, which sort of helps it sit retained a bit better, which is nice. Obviously the rubber washer, which you'll see here, like a rubber layer, is then in between. So you can see here once we zoom back out. Over this side now, this one here is Loctite, because that side I'll put in first. That's Loctite in. This one here is just in tight, no Loctite. We've then got the bolts coming through, big rubber grommet plate behind that. Then this one's slid on. This is cinched up here tight, not Loctite again, as I said. We'll put these bolts on, get the bushings in place, and then we can move on to start removing and re-Loctiting aspects. So it's looking good. Then we put the bash plate on last, obviously, which is good. Okay, so that's the bars on. So we've Loctite, Loctite, Loctite. Now, like I said, you only tighten these till they start bulging, so you can see that's starting to bulge, that bushing. So look, obviously it's designed this way. It does give a bit of flex forward and back, but I guess it's got to flex a long way before you're going to actually smash anything, which is obviously how it's designed to be. Obviously, if these were just washers, it'd transfer a lot more vibration through, but it would also be a lot more rigid and it's not going to flex because you're actually flexing on that bushing, but you don't want to tighten that bushing any more than that. So obviously we'll see how we go. If I drop it and it fails and it cracks everything, I'll just ring SRC and have a chat and see what they reckon. But that's all good. So we're Loctite, Loctite, Loctite. Loctite these two here, and then both of our peg mounts on each side. So now it's a matter of just putting the bash plate back up and Loctite on its two spots here and Loctite under here, and we're done. Okay, so that's a wrap up for all the SRC stuff, all done and installed. So obviously we did the headlight, very easy, quite quick. Just don't forget the little bit of rubber, single-sided rubber, so you stick it on this plate and then push it on. It's in the actual box with the bottom bracket, so make sure you get that out first and look at everything first, which I didn't. So that's quite straightforward. Obviously, like I thought, the products are really great. The way all the bolts line up and you can still get your T spanner thing through on all the different angles is fine. Only thing, like I said, I'd recommend SRC. Just put an extra set of instructions in the box, single one page that says if you're installing bash plate plus this is surplus, you do not need this, use these bolts that came with this, etc. Because what you end up doing is, well, first of all, you just need to know you're going to use the bash plate brackets, because obviously these brackets are 4mm, so nice and solid, compared to the brackets that come with the crash bar, are the same as the brackets, is thickness 2mm as the original. So you want the 4mm. So obviously it needs to say use bash plate bracket, and then put the bash plate bracket on. Forget about the bash plate, because you can't put the bash plate on at the start, because on the other side you can't feed these bolts through because they foul the bash plate angle. Like you've got this in the way, you're trying to feed the bolt through. You can't get through this hole to get it through. Anyway, I couldn't figure it out to get through, especially because of the large bushing. So it's quite simple. Just don't put the bash plate on yet. It's only the four little Allen heads to drop out. So just drop that out, leave the bash plate till the end. You use the brackets, then you do all this part, which is easy, putting these in. It actually makes it a lot easier, I think, compared to the other model, because you've got the bushings and they fit into the hole on the bracket. They sort of retain themselves and sit there while you're fiddling, because your motorbike's obviously on a lean. Compared to the other model, it's got the single hole now instead of the two. So they do have some movement, but I guess they're designed to have movement. Obviously they've got movement because they've got bushings. So I've done what they said. I've tightened them till the bushings, which you can see here, the bushings have begun to bulge, and I wouldn't want to go any more than that, because like I said, two guys split theirs and broke them, so SRC had to rip a pack apart some new kits and send out just the bushings because they over tightened and split them. So I'm happy with the level I've gone to. I wouldn't want to go any more, so I'm leaving it at that for now as far as how tight they are. We've got a disgusting windy day here in Melbourne. So that's all done, so they're all on. Your sacrificial skid plate bits are here, and that's everything complete. So obviously you got to make sure you Loctite everything, and their instructions tell you that. So we've Loctite here, Loctite underneath. Good thing is your original bash plate stock bolts, I'm keeping them in my spare parts in case these ones here happen to fall out. They shouldn't, but if they did, you've got spares. The original bolts that come either in your bash plate kit, you can take as spares, because the actual bolts and everything, you're using the bolts and bushings from the crash bar kit, not from the bash plate kit. So you end up having some spare parts, which is always handy to chuck in your, leave at home or chuck in your spare parts. So that's how they are, that's how they look. So they look fantastic as far as your front view around this side. So they sit that bit proud. So you've pretty much got down where it's really strong, you've got about an inch before it's going to hit anything. Up the top where it might flex more, you're getting closer to your 2 inches, 40mm maybe. So even though they do have some movement, like you can see, it's hard because I'm going to get this set up. So you can see how much they're moving when I'm not moving the camera. So with a decent bit of force, seeing as they do move a bit, but you're putting 20, 30, 40, 50 kilos on there. Dropping a bike at 100 kilos or 200 weight, I don't think it's going to come and hit anything anyway. And obviously they've been engineered that way. So that's all good. She's all done. Yeah, so that's the SRC complete kit for the KLR650 2022. So obviously if you like this video, feel free to hit the like and subscribe. Most of the stuff's done to the bike now. I've just got to play around with toolkit locations. Just been playing around here. You can sort of mount it there, and then the panniers go over, but we're just fiddling to see what might work. But next to hopefully more videos when we actually do go out and do things with the bike. So we'll leave it there for now. Cheers.